On this episode, we take care of some essential fluids on the 300ZX twin turbo. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Turbo Z32. That is our Nissan 300ZX twin turbo from the wonderful year 1990, the first year of the Z32 twin turbo. On this episode, we take care of some very essential fluids that are much too often overlooked. Your oil changes, yeah, we're pretty good about that. Coolant, as you can see in this one, not so much. How about your transmission and diff fluid? When's the last time you changed that? Because it should be on a regular basis. So today's episode is going to be about those two fluids, the trans and the diff. I'm going to show you guys what fluid I choose and that this job really isn't that hard to approach, even for beginners. You need minimal tools, very straightforward. You really can't mess this one up. Well, you can mess up anything if you really try. I know. But let me get in there. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that today, so you don't wanna miss this one. Let's get in the garage and definitely get more than a little dirty today. Pretty straightforward job to do today, guys. We're gonna do the trans fluid and diff fluid on our 300ZX twin turbo, and this is pretty much all you're gonna need to do that job. So for fluids, I'm gonna go with 75W90 red line for the diff in the rear. Good old MT90 for the trans. To get both of those off, the drain plugs and fill plugs, you'll just need a 1/2-inch ratchet with an extension for some clearance in some spots, but for the most part, just that 1/2-inch ratchet should get the job done. Some way to transfer fluid, I like these slippery Pete fluid pumps. They fit right on these quart containers, really useful. So I'm gonna be using those for the diff fluid and the transmission fluid. You cannot really do a gravity feed on this one. Just the way the diff and transmission are set up, you do have to have some way to pump the fluid. All we're gonna do is drain the fluid after we make sure the fill plug also comes out. Drain it all out, put the drain plug back in, and then pump in the new fluid till it starts to ooze out. So simple. I've done this a million times on a million different vehicles. No different on the 300ZX twin turbo, very straightforward. So let's go ahead and do the transmission first. I'll show you where the drain and fill bolts are. And here we are underneath the Nissan 300ZX twin turbo. On the transmission, you can see our drain bolt right here, straight ahead. 1/2-inch driver will get that out. You simply look up a little bit up. You have your fill plug right up here, right above the drain plug, basically. Real easy to access both of these. You're gonna use a 1/2-inch driver. Obviously, loosen this fill plug first before you drain the fluid out, just so you know you can replace it. And then we'll go ahead, once we have that off, we'll loosen the drain plug. All that nasty old fluid will come down into our catch pan here. And we will let that all drain all the way out, put the drain bolt back in, torque it to spec, and top off the fluid till it starts to leak out. We are using the Redline MT90. So pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and drain that old fluid out. And first off, we'll loosen that fill plug up here. Okay, sometimes you gotta use a breaker bar for this stuff. All right, we're stepping up to my 1/2-inch breaker bar. Sometimes folks really do torque these on too tight. Jeez. Freaking Hercules, tighten this one. That should be loose enough for a ratchet to not get it. Be careful, sometimes fluid will come out of the fill plug if someone's recently topped everything off and over topped it. And there's our fill plug removed. I believe the drain plug will probably be just as tight. Oh my God. Feels like they Loctited it in place. Ugh. Yeah. Doesn't actually look too bad. A little darker than I'd like, but I've seen far worse. let that drip out and we'll go ahead and add our new fluid. Now you don't need to use this Redline MT90, you can use any other GL4 fluid. Just make sure it's GL4 and not GL5 for the trans. Apparently the Synchros do not like the GL5, so stick with your GL4. At this time, with all the fluid out, it's time to put the drain plug back in, so we'll go ahead and secure that this time. And I want to feed the hose in there away so it doesn't back right out. And let's pump our fluid till it starts to drip out. She's definitely not full yet. We're just going a little too fast there. So we'll slow it down a little bit and keep pumping. Should take about 3 quarts to top this off, so. Alright, right at the end of the 3rd quart, you'll notice it starts to drip out the fluid. And it's time to put your fill plug back in, because you are topped off. Try not to get too much diff fluid going down your arm. Clean up any drippage. And there we have it, guys. Brand new transmission fluid in the 300ZX Trans. Now to do the diff. Okay, so we're at the rear diff now, and it's a little more tricky to access everything, but on the turbo Nissan 300ZX, you're gonna find the fill plug over here on the right-hand side, the passenger side. You can see it up in there. Boop, right there. That's where we're gonna pull that out. And then the drain is over here on the driver's side is where the drain plug is, right there. So obviously you want to pull the fill out on the passenger side first, and then we'll come over here, pull the drain out, obviously drain out all the old fluid and pump in the new stuff, the 7590 GL5 fluid. Let's go ahead and take these plugs out now. All right, fill plug out. Now it's time to take the drain plug out. This looks like it's in fine shape, no problem reusing it. Time to get that drain plug. Completely apologize not catching the draining of the fluid. I thought I hit record, but I didn't. But regardless, it looked exactly like the transmission fluid, but with dirtier, smellier fluid. So time to fill the diff. Again, you want to use your 7590. Go ahead and feed your hose from your pump into the diff. Make sure it's in there all the way, or though that expensive diff fluid is just going to come right back out. Once it starts to flow out of the fill hole, we'll go ahead and seal her up and she's good. Alright, she's full. Go ahead and pull your fluid out. Oh yeah, we really topped her off. And go ahead and put that fill plug back in. Diff fluid always smells wonderful. Especially that old diff fluid. It smells like it hadn't been changed. The transmission fluid looked pretty fresh, but this diff fluid, not the same situation. Looked a lot dirtier. Again, clean up all this nice drippage here. What stinks too is when I drained it, a lot of the fluid got in the exhaust. And I mean, I cleaned up as best I can over there, but probably gonna have a little bit of burning diff fluid when we fire the car back up, but it's all part of the job, right? So we'll get a little smoke probably from that too, but not bad, not bad. All right, and that's it. Rear diff, straightforward, quite easy, fully serviced. Trans and diff are done. Something I do want to mention, if you are back here to do the diff fluid, if your differential is leaking here around where it connects, right at the axles, you need to go ahead and replace those seals at this time. It's foolish to replace the diff fluid just to have it leak out, and a leaking diff can cause a lot of damage if it runs out of fluid. So make sure if you do have a wet diff when you go back here, or any signs that it leaked out, mine is perfectly bone dry. But if you see anything like that, definitely take care of it. Fluid changes aren't going to save you. You need to go ahead and replace those seals. Just a little tip there.